Well, hello, everyone. Joanne Williams here. And today's podcast on Anxiety Simplified is with Wayne Shipman. He's a returning guest on podcast 64 and 65 on resources for homelessness. Wayne shared his story of homelessness to buying his first home and wanted to share a message of hope for homeless, really families and friends, and hopefully homeless hear this as well, but through the holidays, which can be a stressful season for all of us, more or less, if you're on the street. So welcome back, Wayne, and happy holidays.
Yes, I am excited to be here again with you, Joanne.
Good.
I mean, really, you're just so great. I mean, I like talking to you because you're just always like bubbling with excitement. And it's contagious. I need that, really. I need that.
I think we all do, or somewhere to go to find it for sure. So I hope people do take something away like that. But I'll tell you, I really enjoyed our podcast together. Like I said, it was number 64 and 65 on Anxiety Simplified. And when you kind of talked about one of the people that you had actually helped along your way in that podcast, Christina, I think her name was, actually responded to you and to our podcast, really to thank you for your help. So I'm really seeing you already are giving. And I think that is really what Christmas is all about. So I'd love to hear if you've had any other responses or any other thoughts or whatever you want to share. Let's just have a conversation.
Well, that was one of the rare opportunities I get to actually directly help somebody as I'm traveling in my semi truck, which right now, this is not a fake background. I'm actually in my semi truck right now. So doing podcasting on an iPad in a semi truck parked somewhere. This is a really cool technology age, isn't it?
It is.
It really wasn't long ago in perspective that I would get a pager. I had a little cool looking little pager and I had to go to a payphone and call back, or, those were the days. But this lady, I was again parked and I was off for the day and I went to do some laundry. She was in there hanging out. Her name's Christina, which we had talked about in that episode.
Yeah.
And when you posted this on Facebook, she actually found this video and she responded on there. She called herself Survival, New Albany Survivor was the tag that she put on that YouTube video. But I've only heard from her like twice since then. She's still getting along with the family. She's moved in from the shed. She's taken a bedroom because, she got there and everybody wasn't sure if she had COVID or what was going on. So, but you know what? It's almost drab. It's almost a drab report now because I've tried several times since then. And what it is, like I said before, what I end up doing is somebody on Facebook or somebody out there sees my Facebook page, or they see a broadcast I've done, or they see my media content or something, and they reach out to me, And so, like I said before, I'm a member of like 8 or 10 different homeless groups on Facebook. And usually I'm not really active saying things or doing things, but that's how I keep in touch with the real-time community of what's going on out there. And that was my recommendation during our previous conversation. People can find out what's going on with homelessness. Yeah. And so what's happening now is, I'm trying to be optimistic here because I know Joanne, but the honest truth is there's been four people within the last month that have reached out to me directly, and they don't know me and I don't know them. And I got on the same 10 homeless Facebook groups. They're all over the United States. There's one in LA, there's one in Tampa, there's one in Portland. There's several of them all over the country. And what I do is I do like a copy and paste of the exact same post in every one of these public groups. Okay. And then so people start responding. And even though the homeless group is in Tampa, you got people that live all over the United States that are also a member of that group. So, but people respond. And there's been several times where the people that live in those areas are forwarding to me the homeless resource guides and different churches that do outreach and, just different agencies that are operational during COVID, even though it's, during the quarantine or whatever. There's
in
groups
that
out there.
certain area.
Yeah, in that
Is
area.
that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I've had like pretty good luck, but, some of them, Joanne, there's literally a dead end to every attempt I've made. And my heart is just breaking for some of these people, that the very same churches that, 1 year ago or 2 years ago, every Saturday evening or every Sunday afternoon, they would have a public feed, or they would give away food boxes, or they would do whatever.
Yep.
A lot of them they're not even open for resources for homelessness, because number one, they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed because there's been a major spike in homelessness, especially in the last 12 months.
Yes.
But a lot of these people that are reaching out to me are living in their cars, or they're in term with a roommate. They got like a shared housing, and they're about to move out because the landlord has brought an end to the lease or whatever. And they're trying to make, arrangements before they're homeless. And I'm telling you, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, and still posting regularly in some of these groups, it's leading to nothing. There's a lot of just dead end leads out there. A lot of the same public resource lists that they're sending me, these people have already went through them. They've exhausted all of that,
Yeah.
So what this turns into is really just go-getter individuals that just feel like reaching out, and some of them actually connect. But as far as public resources that are usually open for the homeless, they're for the most part locked down.
When you talk quite a bit in the last podcast about what made you make some changes in your life to get out of homelessness, because you kind of described in the beginning, there was a choice about it. You kind of liked living in the woods or kind of that life. And then it became, I don't want to do this anymore. And you really made some drastic changes in your life. And what would you say if there's no resources, in your city that you can find, or what would you say to somebody that, if you may just have to blank to get through this season, or what would you recommend for them to do?
Yeah, I've done a lot of soul searching, trying to kind of get ready for this conversation.
Uh-huh.
And while I'm driving my semi truck, I listen for hours. I can start a YouTube video and I can lay it face down or darken my screen so that I can just hear it. But I've spent a lot of time contemplating. We actually need a positive message for the homeless people through the holidays. And it's tough to come up with, even minus COVID. When I was homeless during the holidays, the major impact for me was not just that everybody else is having fun and everybody else is having Thanksgiving and everybody else is doing Christmas. It was the awful dread of watching everyone in public seeing me, knowing that I was homeless. And it kind of added to my depression and the amount of anxiety that was already with me as a homeless person. Through the holidays, this is a very complex time of mental
Stress.
coping. Yes.
Yeah.
So, the two greatest things that I can come up with, and this is reaching into an empty bag, really.
Yeah.
Number one is, this too shall pass. Unfortunately, some of the homeless people that are out there are unreachable. And some of them are in situations that, really I can't find resources for them, and I can't find any good Samaritans that'll just go out there and sweep them up. But for the people that really have nowhere to go, I know specifically what it's like to sleep outside and be cold. I never was really hungry because I was a hustler and I don't go hungry. But, in Portland, Oregon, it's hard to go hungry. There was just plenty. But sleeping on, I've slept under the bushes wrapped in a piece of plastic. And I've done that several times. And to be honest with you, a piece of plastic, even when you roll yourself in it 3 or 4 times, it doesn't insulate body heat. It doesn't do anything. It keeps the wind and the chill off of you. But the night is a very, very long night.
Yeah.
And what we have to keep in mind is, if we can make it through the night, the sun will come in the morning, And so one of my messages of hope is, we need to find a way to put the messages out there that we are still here. We're still looking. We're still waiting for them. We're still planning. And as soon as we can find a way, we're coming for them. That's the number one message. But in the meantime, they need to hold on. And, this too shall pass. The winter is coming. It's only, 27th of October right now as we're recording. But the winter's coming, and it's going to be a very cold, long winter like it always is. But finding resources and surviving is simply something they're going to have to do individually. But this too shall pass. And my next message is, okay, you said that I made some really major changes. And the number one thing that happened to me, the biggest thing that happened to me was I went deeper than rock bottom. I hit rock bottom and I started coming up, and I hit rock bottom and I stood up, and I hit rock bottom and I stood up, and it kept happening to me. Finally, I got to a point, Joanne, in my absolute desperation where I had to make a decision. Okay, I'm either going to give up or I'm going to buckle down. And if I'm going to die of the elements, then I'm going to die fighting. I'm going to die trying. That's the decision I made. And believe it or not, I made that decision, and it was like literally within 2 weeks, I was working an actual hired full-time job, and they provided an apartment while I was on a construction site doing remodels on, dry rotted decks. Who would have known? I would have never went looking for that job. But like we said, the universe has a way of bringing things back to you when you have the mindset and the expectation, and you've focused entirely on being able to get yourself back together. I mean, you have to get to that point. You have to get to that point.
And I really want people to hear this, because this is free. This is something that can be done yourself. And, as a psychological person, same thing. This is what I would teach somebody in counseling. What do you want? What do you want? And then you have to focus on it with a clear intention that it will come. One of the books that I really love and use, it's called The One Command. And in it uses a lot about the law of attraction. And that's really what we're talking about, is using your intention. But in this book, The One Command, one of the things he says to get around your mind, because as I say, what do you want and what do you want to create? You can just hear your mind go, I don't know. I'm stuck here. I can't do anything. So one of the things in this book, it really says to do, and this is the statement, I don't know how blank's going to happen, but I know for sure it will, because I feel satisfied and fulfilled. So you say that statement, I don't know how, gets around your mind, because your mind's just trying to figure, okay, I got to do da. But that is really showing, I don't know how, I'm allow the universe to come and help me. But my clear intention is, but I will for sure, because I know what I want, is basically what you're saying. So anybody can say, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I know for sure it is, because I want blank, whatever you fill in that blank. I want a warm bed. I want a nice job. I want to feel happy. Maybe I want some family in my life, whatever that is. And then you repeat it, and you mean it, and you feel it, and you know for sure it must come, because the law of attraction is actually a universal law. It's a physical law of nature. It must come true. When you focus on long enough, you align to it. And that's what you were talking about. You align to it, and that's why it came to you.
Yeah, but I had no idea that's what I was doing.
No, you don't. Nobody does.
I had no idea that it was my intention or the law of attraction. What I knew was...
That's why we're sharing this, so that they do know.
The only thing I knew was I had 3 teenage children at the time by 2 different mothers, and they were completely and utterly ashamed of me as a human being, as a person. They were ashamed for people to find out I was their father. And that's fine. I mean, I understood at the time, kind of where they were coming from. But for me, I mean, like I said in our previous talk, I also did not know that the same law of attraction, the same intentions that we're talking about, is what drove me out there in the first place.
That's right. Either
Because,
direction.
well, yeah, I mean, I bombed out on every friendship, every girlfriend that I had, every job that I had. I was a walking, talking, ticking time bomb, and nobody wanted to be around me. And so when I became homeless, that was what I actually discovered in the mirror of myself. Was I told you that I got to where I hated shaving. I hated, like, right now I've got some whiskers, but I mean, I hated shaving, and to the point where I would just suffer the itch and everything. Because, well, I found out it wasn't shaving. I didn't hate shaving. I was looking at myself in a mirror, and I had to see my own eyes in the mirror. And when I looked at myself in the eyes, I was so disgraced by not homelessness. It wasn't being homeless. It was the person I had become in the tribulation of my mental health problems that I had become. And when I saw myself for real, I went through an anger period that lasted probably like 2 weeks. I was brutally angry. And at the end of that, I was so exhausted. And I remember waking up one morning in this tent, and I just said, you know what? This is not the end. This is not my end. I refuse to be this guy, and this is the end. But to put it into perspective, I looked up some statistical information, and just since we're crunched on time, I don't really have time to explain how they do their count when they estimate how many homeless people are in each city. Okay. But it's called a point in time count. They try to count how many people are outside unsheltered. They take statistical information based on people that are applying for services and people that are in shelters. They estimate how many people are sleeping in their cars and that sort of thing. So on this timeline, this came from the website called usafacts.org. So it's usafacts.org. And on there's homeless population statistics per year. And this was collected by the Housing and Urban Development. So it's supposed to be reliable information. I'm just going to go through this really quick because we're stranded for time. In 2015, there's three categories. There's people under 18, 18 to 24, and over 24. Then there's unsheltered and sheltered. In total, in 2015, there was approximately 565,000 homeless people in the United States. In 2018, there was 553,000, so there was a slight drop. And in 2020, there was 581,000, so there was a spike. And no one really knows what the spike is right now, but by all accounts, every organization anywhere on the internet they're claiming there's a major spike right now because of the COVID virus. So,
and the evictions are up because that moratorium is off.
So the unsheltered total in 2015 was 173,000 people in the United States. The unsheltered people in 2015 was 391,000. And I didn't get the 2020 statistic. But so you and I are talking about, from our living rooms, from the heated comfort of my semi-truck, you and I can talk about, some really great theoretical ways that people can try to adjust their thinking. But the reality is, in 2020, there was 581,000 homeless people in the United States. And every country in the world, without exception, has tens of thousands of their own homeless people. And out of that number, there's a certain number of people who simply cannot do what you and I are talking about. Right. The really seriously mentally, I don't want to say the mentally ill, but, any kind of trauma, any kind of major anxiety, and any kind of major psychological problems that people have coping with homelessness. Imagine the complexities during the holidays.
Yeah.
During the holidays. And you and I kind of probably grew up in the same era, and we watched all of the TV shows. Can you remember, Little House on the Prairie?
Oh, I love that.
Man, and I mean, the Waltons, remember some of them holiday episodes of the Waltons, and it's like there was always just crazy decorations and big turkey and
Big
everybody,
family.
big family. And it was always getting together and there was always little dramas, but every single episode ended with a happy ending.
Yep.
Okay. And so that's my hope and my wish for the holidays is, number one, this too shall pass. Every person out there has to make their own decisions on how they're going to cope with this, but they must. Not coping with it is not an option, not an option. So this too shall pass. And there are literally tens of thousands, if not a few million people, especially in the United States. We're making plans. We're not just sitting around waiting for weather to get better. There's people right now that have stockpiles of resources and they're waiting for the chance to get out there one-on-one to bring them to the people.
True.
And especially during the holidays, I think the best message we can do actually is still working through the relatives, the loved ones, and the sympathizers of the homeless, because the homeless themselves, pretty much like I said, they're not sitting around watching your podcast yet, Joanne. Not yet.
No.
But their loved ones are. Their loved ones are.
Yeah. And, I do think about the Red Kettle or the Salvation Army, that you can give to organizations that do a lot of this work in lots of different ways. I give money to people on the side of the street. I just always do, but I do it for me. I don't do it for them particularly, in the sense whether they drink it or drug it. I don't even care. I say something when I give it to them. I give you this with love and respect, or this can change your destiny. Or I always say something corny, you have 2 seconds, but I always want to share that, like with an intention, like this has something in it good for you. Take this and do something good with it, and whether they do or they don't, that's not what I'm talking about. But I just feel like there are little things we all can do. And I think those grow into bigger things, just like with Christina. You got her into a house with family. To me, that is a miracle. And I think we can all do these little miracles around Christmas.
Yeah, that just took a little bit of legwork and a Greyhound bus ticket.
Yeah,
but
you did. The point is you took the action, though. I can think about that person across in the laundromat and I wonder about it. And I can see that she's struggling, but do I really want to get involved in this? You didn't even think that. You did it. And I think that's what I would encourage all people. Of course, keep safe. And of course, think through it if it doesn't feel right, but do it if it does, and do it with an intention of love, and they will feel it. And I love what you said about them feeling more shame around Christmas, because everybody may be all dressed up, going to holiday parties or whatever, and that they may even feel more looked down on because others may be happier. Oh, that just breaks my heart if that's what you had felt at one point.
Well, I can tell you what was going through my mind. When I talk about the element of shame, I'm not really talking about being ashamed in comparison to others. I'm talking about a very deep kind of, this is a penetrating into the soul kind of feeling. It's deeper than just in your heart. You don't just feel ashamed and walk away and say, oh man, I'm homeless. What I mean is it's kind of like, it's not just the victim mentality of why did this happen to me, but no human being actually deserves what they're experiencing. Like right now, can you imagine what it's like? No resources. No one's open for the homeless. No. Well, I don't want to say no one. I just want to say a very small percentage of the original resources are still out there. But the feeling of what did I do to deserve this? It's, if you make someone angry at you and they slam the door or they block you on Facebook, you can kind of get over that. It's like, well, maybe I didn't deserve that, but it happened. But when you're out there as a homeless person and you have this feeling of overwhelming dread not only like today was a hard day and tonight's going to be hard and cold, tomorrow's going to be a hard day and it's getting colder,
Yep.
And so that feeling of no one really deserves that kind of suffering out there. And so the best thing we can do, like I said, is just keep putting the message out there. More and more young people, by the way, Joanne, you're noticing, you probably noticed there's a big boom right now with podcasters. Like everybody wants their own podcast show and they're starving for content. And it's easy enough to drop suggestions out there, like do a little research about homelessness and start sending some messages to the homeless, But it sounds like it's just a hopeless situation. And by the way, I realize there's another definition for hopeless and helpless. Now, these people don't qualify for the law of attraction, okay? It's when you approach someone. Well, when you approach someone and you're trying to be nice and you're trying to be kind and they reject you, and you come back the next day and you're trying to be nice and you're trying to be kind and they reject you, or they just F-bomb and tell you to leave. Maybe they're suffering and they're in pain. But over and over and over, there's agencies that try and help particular individuals, especially with addictions. And the same individuals keep showing up with the dope in their hand, So that's a different kind of helpless. Those people are refusing to be helped.
Yeah.
But the ones that want to be helped will find a way. They will find a way.
Well, I'm going to still say some things that can be done that are free. We talked about here, and it is mindset. You used it, it can work. The other thing I heard you say that is another skill, again, I teach clients. You looked in the mirror and it hurt. And I heard you say that. And it was really hard to look at you. But they can also look in the mirror and send themselves love and say, I can do this. I don't know how, and I'm going to figure this out. And there is something when you do look into somebody's eyes or your own eyes, you can see deep into their purpose and soul, like you were talking about. And I think that's what you're talking about, the shame. It's the shame in themselves of not really finding their true purpose or reason to be on this earth or alive yet. So I just want everybody to search a little deeper in your own eyes and see what you can find to draw you out, and ask for help from a bigger source. If there's not a church, ask for the greater source in that church to see how they can help you as well. There is things out there, and I am really sorry that there isn't more available through the state or the counties or the churches right now. But I'm gonna say there is hope always. And you can find it. And that's really what we wanted to send to you today, is a message of hope for the holidays. Any last words you want to share, Wayne?
I'm not trying to pull a religious card here, but I've had a lot of association with some of the most humble, beautiful people, and God is the center of their life. And for me, that was a major influence for a long time. And, part of the message I can't help but to admit, even though I'm trying not to be a religious guy, okay, God is not
share
surprised.
Your story.
God is not surprised by COVID. This is no shocker, okay? And God is still in control of the universe, and God still has a plan. Whatever that plan may be, he works through people. Very rarely does he just send down a chariot with all of the gold and buy everybody's out of their problems.
Nope. But you have free will.
I got stuck in a loop at one time that lasted for a period of a few years, that if God is such and such, how come he allowed this such and such? Yeah. Well, later in life, looking back 10 years ago, if I wouldn't have experienced the rock bottom that I did, I would have never experienced the recovery that I claim.
Yes.
I claim recovery right now in my life. Total sobriety. Can you believe that? Marijuana for almost 30 years, and I haven't touched it in over 10 years. I haven't touched a drop of booze. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do vapes. I don't chew gum. I don't do pills for my my psychological
podcasts.
Issues. I do podcasting.
Yes.
I do podcasting. But, the message of hope is we're not alone here. God is still doing something.
That's right.
But even in the worst times in historical events, he always did something through other people. Other people have to make the initiative to move.
You do have to do something. whether it is ask somebody out there or maybe go back to family. I think that's the other part that I'm feeling. You got to have some family in this time right now, or boy, it is twice or three times as hard. Family can really make a difference, but you got to have responsible behavior. You can't be inappropriate and think you can go home. So I would hope that, you could look at family differently, choose what you want, and say these things. I don't know how this can happen, but boy, I know for sure it is. And it will happen for you. So I do wish everyone out there as merry a holidays as you can possibly have, and find some joy in your day.